Hi, my name's Neil. I'm the founder of Fresh Air Production. Fresh Air is the #1 producer of podcasts for brands and businesses in the UK. And we're here to explain, as James said, why you should build your own podcast, not just rent space in other people's. The idea of Fresh Air is that we combine creative flair and commercial nous. We create something that is great to listen to, but also demonstrably effective. And this turned into the phrase flary nous, which means nothing at all, but is in neon on our office wall. The people you've got in front of you today are me, Michaela Hallam, who is our Director of Content, Richard Blake, who's our Director of Marketing and Growth, Raj Panda, who is a Senior Producer on the Fresh Air team, and Ruairi O'Kane, who is our client from National Lottery, and also the most famous person on the stage, which is Amber Rose Gill. And Amber's here because we're going to talk about this very special podcast that she presented.
I am Amber Rose Gill, your favourite Love Island winner and feminist, and this is Amazing Starts Here. I'm telling the origin stories of real-life superheroes who are changing the world on their own terms, empowered by the National Lottery.
I was angry at canoeing for making me hurt so much, like physically and mentally.
As a younger person, I have no reason to be silenced. Now I'm in my element.
Yeah, we have to put in our own money sometimes for these projects because they're like, I can't get the bus fare. And who do they turn to? That was heartbreaking.
Everyone has unique life experiences and unique ways of expressing themselves.
Through this opportunity, I wanted to do my bit to promote change locally, especially when it comes to stigma against addiction.
Join me to hear inspiring takes from the lives of those who are fighting for truth, justice, and a better tomorrow. Follow Amazing Starts Here for a break from your regular podcasts. I'll see you there.
Sounds pretty good. So that is Amazing Starts Here, presented by Amber for the National Lottery. And I say Ruairi is here from our client, the National Lottery. Ruairi, your job is to promote the good causes that the lottery funds. Why on earth would you want a podcast?
The National Lottery, Neil's been going for 30 years now. We need to talk to where our customers are, where our young people are. I mean, for the people who are really young, they weren't around at the start of the story. They don't know who John Major was. They don't know who Anthony Turner was. They don't know who Noel Edmonds was. I don't know how many people
They've missed out.
Yes, I know. They've missed the story. They've missed the start of the film. So our approach is, let's not go back and tell them from the start. Let's go where they are. We know podcasts are so popular. We're very good at TV advertising. We're very good at press releases. We're very good at digital content. The answer to the question about why podcasts, why not?
And so can you summarise the brief for us?
The brief for us, we've stories coming out of our ears. I mean, National Lottery players raise £30 million every week for good causes. 670,000 grants. That's umpteen stories to tell. We want to be storytellers. We want to sell hope. We want to sell dreams. That's not just about winning the lottery. That's about people who have an idea, who can make a difference in their community. And whether you like sport, whether you like arts, whether you like heritage or community, there's something there for you. We wanted to help to tell those stories through the medium of a podcast.
Michaela.
Right, I'm very lucky to be joined by Raj, who's the senior producer on Amazing Starts Here, and of course, Amber Rose Gill. I'm going to start with you, Raj, and say, maybe controversially, that creating a charity podcast might have a certain stereotype about it. It could go into kind of worthiness territory, something very different to where we ended up. And bearing in mind that there's a huge amount of competition for this particular audience that Ruairi was talking about, how did you approach this project creatively to make sure it stood out?
At the time that this brief came to us, I was obsessed with Euphoria. Has anyone seen it?
So does anyone know what Euphoria is?
Okay.
Who's in the audience?
5 people have seen it. Okay, great. Well, Euphoria is like a teen show. It's made by HBO. It's critically acclaimed. It covers a lot of issues. Oh, I was talking too loud. Sorry, turn my levels down. Just noticed that. Anyway, so yeah, it's aimed at young people, obviously Gen Z. It got everyone talking, the internet, Twitter, memes. It had think pieces about it. And the thing that stood out about this show is that it was a teen show that didn't focus on just one teen issue, but it focused on so many issues that young people are going through, including addiction, trauma, sexual abuse. everything, basically. It wasn't like they didn't pick one thing that just ran through the series. It was like everything was covered in this series, anything that you can think of, to the point where everyone says it's a very unrealistic portrayal of high school, but not my high school because I grew up in the ghetto, but that's different.
I think you said that, so you took kind of references and you used some of the grammar of that to speak the language of the people who are really watching that kind of content, but you also took other references from content that some more people in the audience might recognise.
Yeah, so we tapped into the culture and the pop culture around Euphoria and the narrative storytelling of Euphoria, as well as tapping into things like Gossip Girl, and Just Like That, which is a Sex and the City reboot. Anyone seen that? No. Wow, I really watch random shows then. But yeah, so we tapped into popular culture. And I think Zizi said that earlier on stage, that popular culture is culture. And it's like within every story you tell, you want to find a universal theme that's relatable. And for us, pop culture is like a running element throughout this whole podcast, pretty much.
Yeah, absolutely. And can you tell me a little bit more about, because it wasn't just the grammar of the popular culture TV and radio series out there, but it was also, you paid a huge close attention to how music played a role in the narrative that you told.
Yeah, again, I stole that from Euphoria because of how their storytelling is done there. It's very much like the sounds, the music, the dialogue, the narration of the lead character, which is Rue, who is an addict. That like all merges together in just one scene to paint a real picture. And like the audio is used in a way that us oral geeks would be really, really proud of. And there was one scene that I played for Ruairi because he hadn't watched Euphoria either. And it was where Rue's kind of narrating her depression. She's talking to her girlfriend. Her girlfriend's really not feeling what she's saying. You can really feel how alone she feels. And she's really, really depressed. So what's she doing? She's watching Love Island because that's what Americans do when they're depressed. But that for us is just our summer, right? But that really nailed depression. And I was like, this is the type of storytelling that we can do on this podcast. And that's how we're going to use music and sound. So every episode, this was the ambition. You guys can listen and tell us if we did it, was that we wanted every episode to sound different orally. We wanted different music in every episode. We wanted every episode to nail the essence of that person's story, who the episode was about.
Another cue that you took from Euphoria was about casting our narrator or our host.
Yeah, Amber laughed at me when I told her this, but the casting for Euphoria, you can see I'm such a geek. You guys should take a shot every time I say Euphoria. But the casting was really the first thing that got a lot of headlines. So they cast a Disney star, Zendaya, as a recovering addict. And I think that's a really, ballsy move. And that's obviously Zendaya growing into the next stage of her career, et cetera, et cetera. And we wanted to cast someone unexpected to tell these stories.
So we cast an ex-Love Islander in the role of telling stories about the work that the National Lottery does. And it's quite a big departure from what you normally do, Amber. And we can see what was in it for the lottery in terms of the audience that you already have and that you'd bring to the podcast. But it feels like this was also really important for you and it did something for you and your personal brand. So I'd really appreciate if you talked us through that a bit more.
So for me, in 2022, I decided that I want to do more meaningful kind of things. I've got such a big platform and I want to use it for good, not just what jeans am I wearing, what makeup have I got on. I want to bring value to things that are sort of untold. And so when this came along, it was the perfect fit for me. I was like, wow, this is just I felt like I manifested it. But yeah, I really admire what people do and how they want to make a world a better place. And I want to be that sort of vehicle where they can get that message out to as many people as possible.
I think obviously you brought an audience, but you also had an impact on getting our guests to want to participate, because there's something, I know you hate this, but there's something in meeting you, and people were really kind of excited to meet you. But I think the other thing that you did really well, there's a huge difference between, we could have written a script and we could have got somebody to narrate it, a voiceover. But what we really wanted to do here was have somebody, a presenter or a host who was really genuinely connected to the stories that they were hearing and that you were telling. And I think you did that brilliantly. And I think so not only were people excited to meet you, but if you listen to the series, you can hear how invested you are and how people open up. I mean, there were tears.
Yeah, there was lots of tears, but sometimes I thought the guests just didn't want to talk to us. Like I would go in and they'd be like shy, and I'm like, how am I going to get a whole episode out of like someone that just doesn't want to talk? But I was good at making people feel quite comfortable because I don't know, I just like to talk to people normally. But I think the reason why the episodes were so good is because I took a genuine interest from the beginning about their stories and just them as people. And I remember Kieran, one of the women that I interviewed, was like, nobody actually wants to listen to me, so I'm surprised that like you're taking such an interest. And I was like, oh my God, that's so cute. And so, yeah, I think just me being really passionate about it and wanting to be in every single like meeting and everything that we're doing just helps. Because my audience aren't stupid, you know, like my followers are not stupid. They know when I really care about something or if something's not as authentic. And I think a big thing for me as well is about being my authentic self.
Yeah, no, and that totally came through. And I think that you can absolutely hear that. What was your favourite story? What touched you most?
No, I couldn't pick. Like there's 6 stories and they're all completely different. So I couldn't possibly pick, you know, one episode I'm talking about sort of FGM and learning about that because I didn't know much about it. Then about South Asian history, and then the Swan Song Project where he was providing songs for people in end-of-life care. So I just couldn't pick one.
Yeah, they're all really, really different. And I think this also just goes to demonstrate how important it is if you're making your own content that you get somebody that's really invested. And as you say, you were there every step of the way. You travelled around the country meeting people.
Absolutely loved it, yeah.
Telling their stories. Finally, what do you like about podcasts as a format? Why are you moving into that space?
I like podcasts because I'm very much chaos and I don't know what I'm going to say. I don't know what's going to come out of my mouth. And I feel like a podcast is a platform where you can do that. Like, I don't think Instagram's for me because I'm just too messy and like, I don't know what I'm going to say. And so I just like that authentic, genuine side that I think that podcasts provide over other sort of platforms.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you both.
Thank you.
I should obviously go back to the client to have the final word. Ruairí, how was it for you?
Well, for us, I mean, externally, it worked really, really well. We got the listeners that we wanted. Internally, we worked with 12 organisations across 4 countries. It kept them happy in terms of providing an example of a podcast or something to do. And finally, as Amber's alluded to already, we fund so much. What connects an Olympic athlete with a guy who writes songs for people at end-of-life care? It's National Lottery fund them. And we were able to draw that through Raj's idea of examining the origin stories. What was it that made somebody just do something so special? And we're very lucky we're in a position to help them.
Thank you. So that's the why and the how to make your own podcast. But I'm going to hand over to Richard, our Director of Marketing, to do the science bit and tell us why podcasts are so brilliant for brands.
Hello. Yes, I am going to tell you 5 reasons why podcasts are brilliant for brands. So warning, I am going to throw some stats at you, but they are some good ones, I promise. So, number 1, intimacy. This isn't advertising in its traditional sense. We're not disrupting your day with an ad. Your audience is choosing to spend time and escape with your brand, and 90% of them are wearing headphones. Recent research from Spotify has shown that digital audio, so audio you choose to listen to, is over 25% more engaging, more memorable, more emotionally intense, and more better detailed recall. 66% thought there was too much visual stimulation and that audio was a nice way to escape from it. And this is backed up by The Guardian in a separate study. It's the fastest growing medium and it's the medium with the highest attention. So 69% versus 39% TV. Number 2, intelligent. A typical podcast lasts about 26 minutes. This isn't a 10-second Instagram reel. It's proper immersion on your mobile. It's not doom scrolling. And brands really fit into podcasts. Oh, it's interesting slides. So I was going to run the slides, and then I thought, no, I don't want to have 3 things in my hands. So let's go. Yes. Go then. So a typical podcast lasts about 26 minutes. This isn't a 10-second Instagram ad. And brands really fit into podcasts. 93% pay attention to the brand. Acast also tell us it's the most trusted, so second after influencers. And it's upmarket, so 64% more likely to be business decision makers. They're twice as likely to be early adopters, and 45% more likely to be graduates. Number 3, a sit-down meal of your brand. Podcasts can sit at the center of your content channels and complement your other social channels, which are more throwaway and snackable. This is a sit-down meal. So I want to suggest we look at this through a lens of what is actually happening when you buy an ad. You're buying a host of slightly distracted eyeballs. So this is eye tracking from Lumen, which tells us that a 30-second ad only actually sees about 46% of people actually watching it. And if you compare the major ad platforms, only 10% are watching to the end of an ad. Compare that to 70% of a typical podcast. And remember, we're talking minutes here, not seconds. So I like comparing podcast and TV for a cost per minute of attention metric. So budget over minutes actually consumed. So I've had a little play, and using ITV rate card for a daytime 30-second slot against all adults, and assuming you spend about the same again on creative, you get to 15K, which is very generous to any ad agency. This morning has an average audience, according to Barb, of 1 million people. So you're reaching 1 million slightly distracted people, some of whom have gone to have a cup of tea or looking at their phones. If you apply that 13.8 seconds, that 46% attention of a TV ad, then you get to 230,000 minutes of attention. I've applied the same sum to one of our podcasts. 91,000 cost, 117,000 downloads, 12 30-minute episodes, 71% average listen-through rate, gets you 1.9 million minutes of attention. So that works out at 6.5p versus 4p cost per minute of attention. So put simply, the traditional ad model of disrupting your scroll, your view with your brand message has an enormous amount of wastage built in. Brands spend millions to get millions of people to look up from their phones or watch to the end of a Facebook ad. Great for novelty and awareness, less good for consideration and long-term brand value. 4, the power of long. This is the long-term game. You're asking audiences to choose you rather than disrupting. You're building a proper thing. You're not renting an audience for a campaign. You're part of and you're helping form a daily ritual of me time rather than disturbing it. And you can really create a voice for your brand. You can work with talent and experts centered around an activity that is low effort and high value for them. So what's happening with all that attention? Without being the BFG and seeing ears pointing in the direction of the sound, what clues does science give us? So audio is your primal technology. It develops at about 20 weeks in the womb, and it's the last to switch off before you die. It's your primal technology. Attention, more accurately, is the removal of distractions. So visual is our dominant sense, and I can tell you there's a lot of visual going on with me at the moment, and it's also our most crowded. And because audio requires that more effort, your brain is literally making up the pictures in your head, your attention is more focused, and you're able to spend longer and take in more. And it makes that one-to-one connection with a host like Amber really important. It's actually a neural connection. So you're around the table with somebody, and the host is just talking to you. They're the voice of the listener. And because the pictures are removed, your imagination is made to work. It's the same with reading. It means the emotion and the personal meaning behind this attention is all the more powerful. We need to talk addiction. Addiction to dopamine, or originality, or addiction. There we go. I don't think there are many here who say their relationship with their phone is their healthiest. Apps are just like little rabbit holes, and they deliver dopamine as a reward. They demand attention. But I don't know about you, but I often feel quite overwhelmed with all the WhatsApps. Whereas oxytocin is released with empathy. It's the emotional response. It's the love hormone. And it's what a good long-form story, a podcast, an emotional releases. And your brain is coded to hear stories. Before you could read, you listen to the world around you, your parents' bedtime stories. The power of the connection to the voice goes that much deeper. So a good podcast is like a sit-down meal or a good walk. It's focused in the moment activity, which makes better for you, more rewarding work. So this is quality, not quantity. And the emotion driven by the story drives recall and drives a much stronger brand action rather than just a click or a like or a view. So, number 5, it's originality. So podcasts are a low barrier to entry, no rules place. It's incredibly personal and flexible. And if you try and fail, there's always the next episode. It's the perfect place for creativity. But I hear you think, why would I want to listen to a brand rather than a hilarious comedy skit about nappies or a searing political commentary about Liz Truss as a lettuce? Well, that's our job. We turn your brand into a podcast that audiences will love. We take broadcast quality producers and turn your talent into podcast stars, your brand purpose into a killer format, and your expertise into a brilliant conversation. So we think of the 3 T's, which was the previous slide, but I will go there. The 3 T's, which is talent, there we go, talent, topics, and titles to reach your audience and make sure any format is repeatable, relatable, and relevant. So my challenge to you and your brands, what is a show that only you can make? Back to Neil.
Rory's got a flight to catch, by the way. He's just not run off the stage because he's bored of us. So yeah, that question of what's the show that only you can make, we would like to help you with that. So what we'd like to say now is that we will offer to any brand in here, any marketeer in here, we are offering a free workshop of 2 hours with the people that you see on this stage. If you are
Maybe not Amber.
If you're toying with the idea of...
I didn't know about that.
If you're toying with the idea of making a podcast, if you don't know what you could achieve, if you don't know how much it costs, if you don't know the nuts and bolts of what you would do, we would like to work that through with you. If you would like 2 hours of our time just to brainstorm that and think about how this fits into your comm strategy, find someone with a blue T-shirt on afterwards. We're all going to change into blue T-shirts so you can find us and come and see us in fresh air. And if that doesn't tempt you, Amber is launching her own podcast with us very soon. You've heard why Amber loves it, why Catherine Ryan loves it. It is unfiltered. It's also currently unbranded. So if you would like to talk to us about that and reach Amber's 2.6 million followers.
2.7.
2.7.
And how many on TikTok?
If you're a fan of Miranda Keeling on Twitter, you may know what she does, some beautiful poetic observations on the world. We're creating a new series with her, and you can get involved in that. And also, for those in the marketing business, you may well know Gemma Greaves, the former CEO of the Marketing Society, and we're creating a new series with her called Are You Sitting Uncomfortably? So watch out for all of that. Please do come and talk to us. This is what we do, as you can tell, and we love it, and we can persuade you to make your own podcast. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thank you very, very much. Rory's literally just diving there. We're putting him on the back of a scooter or something just to get there on time. What an amazing offer. Nothing in life is free, but this sounds like it is free.
It's free, no obligation, James. That's what it is. We love working with brands to make their own case for making a podcast. We often find that people within an organisation, there's a sort of small team who are interested in it, want to fiddle with it, want to play with the idea, might not know how to persuade others within the organisation, might not know what they do. So that's obviously in our interest to help you understand that and make that case. So we're in King's Cross. You can come and spend some time with us. We'll come and spend some time with you. You have Richard's science bit, Michaela's creative bit. I'll just sit there and make the tea, and we can just work through why a podcast could work for you.
If you want to have a cup of tea with Neil and get a bit of science and the rest of it, go and find the Fresh Air T-shirts, the blue T-shirts after this. A massive hand for Fresh Air.
Thanks.